Hey guys, this is module 17 on sleep deprivation, sleep disorders, and dream theories. Okay, so I'm going to try to make this as concise as possible. Basically, Americans are not getting a lot of sleep. And researchers have called this the Great Sleep Recession because a lot of us are not getting proper sleep at night. And it's taking a lot of tolls on our physical and mental health. So sleep takes up to a third of our lives, if you think about it. 25 years on average we spend sleeping. And the thing is that when we as humans are left to sleep without any alarms, we would sleep around 8 to 9 hours. And that's when we would feel refreshed. Now, there are exceptions to this. There are some people who only need 6 hours, but most of us need around 8 to 9. Now, when we don't get proper sleep, when we're deprived of proper sleep, there's a lot of consequences that it can take on our mind and our body. First of all, it can lead to difficulty in studying, diminished productivity. It can lead us to make more mistakes, irritability, and fatigue. After alcohol, the second most dangerous thing you could do while driving is be sleepy. It's very dangerous because of all of these things. Also, there is a negative correlation between sleep and relationship conflicts. So, the less sleep one gets, we find that there are usually more conflicts they have in their interpersonal relationships. Also, there is a relationship between sleep and depression. When one doesn't get enough sleep, it actually can predict the emergence of depression. You're way more likely to develop depression if you're not getting proper sleep versus someone who is getting good night's sleep every night. Now, another thing to know is that REM, which we talked about already, REM we know processes emotional experiences. And if you're not getting sleep, you're probably not getting enough REM. So you're not getting your body's natural protection against depression. By kind of processing it unconsciously in our sleep, we're able to get through it more so than if we're not able to do that. Okay, now, other ways in which sleep deprivation can affect you. First of all, it can make you gain weight. Now, when you do not sleep enough, when you're sleep deprived, your body does several things. First of all, it's going to increase this hormone called ghrelin. Ghrelin is a hormone that comes out of your stomach and it promotes hunger. It makes you hungry. So sleep deprivation causes an increase in ghrelin. It causes a decrease in leptin, which is the hormone that tells your brain, I'm full. It also decreases your metabolism. It increases cortisol, which is a stress hormone that converts cells into fat cells, converts the sugar into fat cells. And it makes your brain more responsive to food, like, ooh, I really want that, making you really want things to eat when you aren't even hungry. Your brain is trying to fuel itself because you're sleep deprived, and so it's going to go for those fatty foods. So sleep deprivation is really not good for weight management. Also, sleep loss can suppress immune cells that help to battle viruses and cancer. Like we talked about, stage 3 sleep is very important for kind of repairing the immune system. So if you're not getting sleep, you're not getting those repairs. It can also slow our reactions. It can increase our errors on visual attention tasks. Now, one thing to note is that when we don't have REM, like let's say you're only sleeping 3 hours, if you're only sleeping 3 hours, you're not getting much REM because you've maybe only gone through 2 cycles. And the most amount of REM you get is at the end of the night. So if you're deprived of REM sleep, what we find is that when a person sleeps again, they experience what we call REM rebound, where they're going to go straight into REM versus going into those other stages, which are important too. But the fact that we have REM rebound tells us that REM is super important for us, for our biological functioning. And other animals, such as mammals, also experience REM, and they will experience REM rebound too if they are deprived. Now, some sleep disorders. So first of all, there's insomnia. Insomnia is characterized by persistent problems in either falling asleep or staying asleep. I want you to think about, based on what you just learned, what could be possible long-term consequences of insomnia. Now, worrying about insomnia only makes it worse. um, and oftentimes, people who have insomnia will take sleeping pills or drink alcohol. And oftentimes, those quick fixes actually just make the problem worse because it interferes with one's natural cycle. And it can cause a buildup of tolerance to the drug, requiring you to need more and more of it to be able to sleep. Then there's narcolepsy, where people have sudden attacks of overwhelming sleepiness. These usually last 5 minutes or less. And oftentimes it could be at a time of a lot of emotional experiences. So, narcolepsy, thankfully, can be treated with medication and a sleep regimen. But in severe cases, a person would collapse into REM. So, if I had narcolepsy and I had a severe case, I could be talking and maybe I start laughing and I just fall asleep and go straight into REM. So, it's pretty rare. It's about 1 in 2,000 people develop narcolepsy. Then we have sleep apnea, which is, in contrast, is very common. Sleep apnea is a sleep disorder which basically happens when a person will stop breathing in their sleep, causing them to wake up very briefly, so briefly that they don't remember it in the morning, but it does lead to feelings of sleep deprivation. It's associated with snoring. So if you have a parent that's a really loud snorer, it could be that they're actually not breathing enough and that's why they're snoring. And it causes the deprivation of slow wave sleep, so that deep sleep. It's associated with obesity, especially among men. So middle-aged men who are overweight are the most likely sufferers of sleep apnea. Also, night terrors. Night terrors are a phenomenon that experienced primarily in children. And what can happen is a child may sit up or walk around. They may talk incoherently. Their heart rate and their breathing rate are going to be very fast, and they appear terrified. They might scream. Now, rarely do they actually wake up or remember what's happened in the morning. And night terrors occur during stage 3. Nightmares, which are different. Nightmares are just bad dreams or negative emotion dreams. That happens during REM. So night terrors happen during stage 3. Nightmares happen during REM. Now, sleepwalking and sleep talking are childhood disorders too. They can happen in adulthood, but typically it's more common in kids, and it's very genetically related. Typically, these things happen in stage 3, especially sleepwalking. And the reason why kids are more likely to be sleepwalkers than adults is because kids actually get the most NREM sleep, because they're growing and they need that time to revitalize their body. And so since they have the most, they're more likely to get it than we are as adults. Okay, now dreams. So daydreams and night dreams are different. Daydreams kind of tend to be more realistic based on what's happening right now in this moment. REM dreams tend to be really vivid, emotional, and bizarre. And oftentimes the story will incorporate little weird parts of your previous day's experiences and things you were focusing on. So for males and females, about 8 out of 10 dreams are marked by at least one negative or emotion. So nightmares are really common. Some common dream themes: failing, being attacked, pursued or rejected, or experiencing some kind of misfortune. Now, a lot of people think that sex dreams are much more common than they are. It's about 1 in 10 dreams for men. It's about 1 in 30 dreams for women. Now, interestingly, you've probably experienced this at some point. Things that are happening in our environment while we're sleeping can easily be woven into our dreams. So, for example, if you're sleeping in a phone call, you hear your phone ring, your dream might be that someone's calling you. That happens all the time. Now, some dream theories about why we dream. First, there's this one by Freud. Now, we know Freud is an interesting guy. And he said that our dreams are basically the only time that we're allowed to act out our true hidden unconscious desires that are unacceptable. So he thought that many of our dreams were very sexual. And he said that there's two parts to dreams. That there's the manifest content. So the manifest content is like the general storyline of the dream. Like if you had a dream that you shot someone else, that would be the manifest content. The latent content is what Freud thought was the true meaning behind the dream. And these were unconscious drives and wishes. So maybe if you shot someone, according to Freud, maybe the gun would represent, I don't know, power or sexual energy, and he would interpret it that way. We'll talk more about this in class. Then there's the information processing theory. This theory basically says that dreams may help us to sift, sort, and fix the day's experiences in our memories. So basically, it's rehearsing the memory and allowing us to consolidate it. Then there's the physiological explanation of dreams. There's this idea that maybe we dream because it helps to stimulate the brain while we're asleep, and that can help us preserve and expand our brain's neural pathways by stimulating it. Then there's the activation synthesis theory. This theory says that dreams are the brain's attempt to synthesize random neural activity. Now, PET scans show that there is increased activity in the amygdala during emotional dreams, while the frontal lobe is idle. The problem with this theory, though, is that there's not many predictions we can make from it. So with both wish fulfillment and activation synthesis, there's not a lot of predictions we can make from it that are accurate. So it's not a great theory. And then lastly, we have the cognitive development theory. This theory says that dreams aid in brain maturation and cognitive development, and that our dream content reflects our dreamer's level of cognitive development. Because if you remember, when you're a baby, you don't really have dreams. As a child, your dreams are pretty rudimentary. They're pretty basic. As we get older, as we mature more and our brain matures more, our dreams get more and more complex. And they also say that dreams help simulate our lives, including our worst case scenarios. So that's the theory of cognitive development for our dreams. Now, I'd like you to test yourself, and I'll see you soon.